Okay, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We're very honoured and happy to have Heather Semon and Daniel Shrewsbury from International School of Paris joining us today. And they're going to present a little bit about their story at ISP and what they've been learning, and some bigger messages, I think, about what we can all think about in our roles in our schools. So thank you, Heather and Daniel, and over to you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Zoe.
Yeah, thanks for inviting us to share. This is actually really exciting. So Dan and I put together a bunch of slides that we wanted to share with you. So let's get started. Can you see that?
Yeah, we can see that.
Okay, awesome. So the purpose of our session, we're just really looking at sustainable systems, and we divided it into three main areas because we thought that was the most relevant and important in our context, but actually, hopefully yours as well. The communication, the collaboration, and then how do we continue that? Because we feel that that's what makes it a sustainable system. We can talk about it, we can collaborate, but what happens beyond that? How do we continue it? So just a little bit of an outline of what we want to share with everyone, just some really brief introductions for who we are. And then we visited a conference called The Change Now, and then we're going to dive into what actually we do at ISP in the primary, Action Cubs, and then Dan's going to share about next steps with the eco schools and his action research. And we're going to follow that up with a breakout session because we want to hear from you and how we can grow together, and then just some of our closing thoughts. So for me, my name is Heather Semon. I currently teach grade 4 at the International School of Paris. We're a PYP school. This is my 3rd year here, but I'm also the primary service learning and action coordinator. This is my 2nd year in this role, and it just got invented 2 years ago, so I'm kind of building as I go, and I will be continuing that next year.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. I'm Daniel Shrewsbury. I am also a grade 4 teacher at International School of Paris. My 1st year here, so I've been kind of hanging on to Heather's coattails in terms of what she's been putting in place here at school, and we'll take you through some of our experiences so far this year, with a hope to learning a lot from you as well during our breakout session in around about 25 minutes.
Hopefully, we're going to go fast.
All right. So, yeah, Change Now. I mean, I'm not sure how many people know of this conference. Maybe you could put your digital hand up if you are aware of this conference within the city of Paris. It has been in operation since 2017. And it was really to give an opportunity for many different stakeholders to support the work that was done by the Paris Agreement. And the intention was to really build a community at a conference whereby, and like it says at the bottom here on the right-hand side, where opportunities to connect with people, and you can create not only partnerships, but ideas, innovations, you're building, and like it says here, building and strengthening ecosystems for change. A real great opportunity to transform not only what we do, but the way that we think, and also then to influence others with particular actions or ideas and partnerships, like I said. So what we found is that the conference itself was incredibly well organized right from the start. And myself and Heather, we're not experts at networking or conferencing. You know, we're kind of slowly building our own personal profiles, the profile of the school, the profile of the classrooms, and the work that we do. But in no way, shape, or form are we experts at going to conferences and networking. So we signed up, and the school we're thankful enough to the school to support us, and they paid for us to go to this particular conference. So we thought to ourselves, right, well, how can we make this as meaningful as possible for ourselves, but also for the school community and maybe the wider community as well? So we really, got together a few weeks before the conference, once we'd signed up and we started making plans on the app. There's a wonderful app which gives you all of the participants in the conference, be it stalls or speakers or food stands or networking opportunities. And we took a real good portion of time to organize our thinking about how are we going to make the best out of this collaboration opportunity? Because I think sometimes you can go to conferences, maybe you're not particularly engaged, maybe it's some PD that you really want for yourself. But this was something which we really, really wanted to bring back to the school and then share with the wider community. So we really kind of got ourselves organized and we planned out our days really quite intricately, right, Heather?
Yeah.
It was a real opportunity for us to say, right, who do we want to listen to speaking? Who would we really like to talk to when it comes to the one-to-one networking opportunities? So we're very, very thoughtful about how we were going to approach attending this particular conference. And then as soon as we walked into the conference, it seemed as though everybody else had done exactly the same thing, because the organization, the warmth that people showed, the openness that people were talking to other people, it was really remarkable. And then if you are, what we found was if you're in that sort of environment, you can't help but be encouraged and energized and inspired by speaking to people. And that's exactly what we felt right from the very first moment when we walked into this conference. And if you haven't had a chance to go to this conference, it happens every year. It may not be in exactly the same location. This one happened to be in the Grand Palais here in Paris. But we put the link towards the end of the slides as well for you if you are interested in attending next year. We would highly recommend it. It's something which is truly inspirational. And as you'll see shortly, it's given us a great opportunity to build some potential partnerships and collaborations after this event. And indeed, like myself and Heather were just talking earlier, if we had not gone to this conference, I don't think that we would have had this opportunity to speak through the ECIS portal today. And I don't think that some of the plans we put place in school, in place in school, and also in the wider Paris community of schools, I don't think that would have happened either. So we'll talk about that in a moment. But Heather, do you want to build on anything?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things with this conference was that so many times we just go to education conferences because we're educators. So we're usually with people who understand what we do and have a similar mindset towards education and students. But when Dan and I walked in there, we were some of the only teachers walking around, and on your badge, it says what your job is. And pretty much, I didn't see any other teachers. I mean, the Green School of Bali was there, but it was us. And then when people realized, oh my gosh, you're an educator and you're actually in Paris, they were really excited to talk to us because we talk to people from all kinds of fields, and just the range beyond just education, but what are potential jobs, what are potential solutions? And so we were kind of overwhelmed at all the connections, but we tried to collaborate. It was a very intense 3 days. We were exhausted. So we were going to share a little bit more. One of the biggest things I thought with the Change Now was how there was all these different platforms. So there was photographers, there were artists, there was remind me of her name, Dan, the tree planting.
Oh, Pradisi Singh. Yeah, Pradisi Singh.
So much. I never say it right.
Yeah.
Oh, she was incredible. She's 12 years old. She's from India, and she has taken upon herself to plant 1 million trees. She's going for it, and she's just completely mobilized her community. And so she just shared how, she's just a kid, and we're primary educators. We're like, yay, primary. But she was so inspirational, and she's standing up there and sharing what she can do and how her whole community has rallied behind her. She's published a book. And just hearing her passion towards something so simple as planting trees, but really all the organization, all the support, and how she wants to just change the world. She was incredible. We met her, signed her books, just kind of fangirled out. But then we also talked to a lot of food. So the food there was very specific about the companies that were selling the lunch, the packaging. We talked to a coffee company here in Paris that specifically employs homeless people called Change Please, and how they reach into the different communities around Paris and teach people a job skill. It gives them a purpose, the whole organization of just a business. And then we really focused on a whole bunch of different sessions, but one of the ones that also stood out to me, I added a picture of Satish Kumar, was all about love, which I don't know, maybe that's not the first session that most people want to go to, but it was incredible because he was talking about how, as a society, as humans, we've become more isolated. We are more about what's in it for us rather than what we can give back. And we've lost the connection of love for ourselves, love for each other, love for nature. And so he led the whole room in this entire song about recognizing the beauty before us and above us and after us. And it was just cool to feel that energy and realize that if we don't come back to compassion and empathy and love, then what's the purpose? What is the point? And what message are we giving to our students ultimately? And it was just really reflective. And that one really stood out to me. Dan, you had a couple standouts too, yeah?
Yeah, we've put an image in the middle here. There's a young photographer, and you can't
Yes.
see him too well here, Gab Major, and he is from the Philippines, and he's a photographer, he's an artist. He's, I think, 19 years old. And the way that he spoke at this conference, I mean, talk about young people kind of really impressing. This young person, along with Prasidi Singh, the young 12-year-old student, the way that these young people spoke about the environment and the relationships and the way that you can have an impact as a young person in any field that you are particularly passionate about was really, really, truly inspiring. And he's taken this image right in the middle here. It's a photo series he did called Guardians of the Marsh, and it's all about indigenous cultures taking care of their saltwater regions around their kind of ancestral home. And he was just shining a light on these people and how they are the guardians of not just this particular marsh, but all indigenous cultures, being guardians and stewards of nature. And it was a true inspiration just to listen to this person and understand where they come from minority communities, but having a platform in their particular passion, in this case, art, for Gab, and sharing that with the world. A real standout moment for me. It was 45 minutes that I won't forget in it for a long time.
So we took that inspiration because we were very inspired, obviously.
This was, as maybe you can tell.
Right. So we decided after this to create our own Paris Screen Educators Network. And then we have a shout out to Tim Black at Marymount. Tim is another passionate Paris International School educator. And so we decided that why not? We need to come up with some sort of collaborative for Paris because so many times you meet people, but they're not particularly in your region of the world. So we created this as a way to collaborate. And we thought we could just share ideas. I actually do want to share kind of, I think I can do it.
We've had one meeting so far, so we've got a little chat. Yeah, we have a little chat group.
We're just building it.
We're building,
but
yeah.
We were just looking for ideas, and it was something that I took home as to together we're stronger. So that's that little emblem up there. For time, Dan, I'm gonna move on. So just our next continuation of what we're doing at ISP. This is really specific to primary. So I created a club. It's a before school, and it's called the Action Cubs because we're the International School of Paris Cubs. But I really wanted to elevate student voice. That was the whole purpose, was to have student voice represented, but also to model, to inspire, to encourage, and to just promote little changes that make a big difference. And so because we are a PYP school, I do incorporate our approaches to learning, our skills, and in the PYP action is very organized into the 5 sections of participation, advocacy, social justice, social entrepreneurship, and lifestyle choices. And with the Cubs, I have representatives from homerooms grades 2 to 5. Each homeroom gets a rep, and we go through an application process in the beginning of the year. They do an interview. They tell me why they want to be a Cub and what are some of their ideas. And then we meet every Friday, and we just work through different things. I do use a lot of the Compass education, which I don't know if people are familiar with Compass, highly recommend, by the way, the pyramid light. So we look at what's happening And then we really think about why it's happening, what can we do about it, how can we do it, and actually just doing something. And I have found, this is only the second year of the Cubs, but it's amazing so far because even the littles, so early years, we have the 3-year-olds, we have the kindergarten, and even grade 1, they'll run up to me and be like, "I want to be an action cub." It's like, you already are. Like, everyone's an action cub. So you don't have to come to the meeting to take action. You can do anything. And then I use my team as kind of like the cheerleaders and the go-to and the people to ask the questions to and the people to share ideas. And it's just kind of turned into this whole celebration of tiny actions making big changes. So I just wanted to share some of the projects because really it has changed dramatically even in these 2 years since it just started. Some of the things that we have come up with, or my action cubs, we really looked at a garden because we are in Paris and our space is so limited at our school. So we have this beautiful terrace, and since we can't actually dig into the earth, we have window boxes and we have pots. And so we planted some seeds, and they were very proud to watch them come up. Dan, you planted them in the wintertime, right? So is
Yeah, we tried to get some understanding of
the research of it.
yeah, seasonal growing plants. So we've not grown anything edible yet. We've actually got a small crop of radishes and carrots. I don't know whether the carrots will be ready by the end of the year, but so we've planted a small crop now. The weather's a bit better, but in the wintertime, November, we planted some crocuses. That would then come up in the early springtime. So we managed to get a little bit of growth for sure. The plan is now to look around the school and see where we could really, have a genuine garden, and maybe we can really grow some produce and really start thinking about maybe using our wall spaces. So, from this little action, once again, of having a few window boxes, we're starting to build bigger plans.
Yep. We also planned this year a family forest day. So in this picture, they're actually picking up, is this a seed that started to sprout? So
Yes.
we really wanted to find a way to invite our parents because we think that's a really important partnership as well. And a lot of the parents ask, how can I be involved? So we organized a forest day with our vice principal, and we met in the forest and we went for a hike because it was all about appreciation of nature. Just getting out and hiking, which again, Paris, not all of our kids have the same accessibility or the opportunity, or even just, go for a walk in the woods, depending upon where you are, is not as simple. So that was a really lovely day. And we really hope to continue that because the parent feedback was really positive.
We had I think there was 50 people turn up,
I
right?
know, people just
Quite
kept coming out of the
extensive.
woods.
Like 2 or 3 hours wandering around the woods and just looking
It
at
was
things
just
and observing. It was glorious.
It was a day in the woods, and sometimes we take that for granted, but we hope to continue that. Composting. So this started last year. One of my action cubs was like, there's too much trash. What can we do about it? So we ended up researching biodegradable trash versus not. We had to put in an order to get a specific type of composter that was elevated because of the rats, because Paris. We also had to make sure it was fully covered. We had to figure out where we were going to put this composter because we couldn't block certain doors. And so we went through this whole planning process. Then we created an assembly to teach everybody, first of all, like what is compost and what is not. We created a game. We ended up getting a bucket for each class that has a lid. And so it's this whole idea where we eat lunch in our classrooms here. So each classroom has their bucket and they put their compost in, and then ideally you'd have a representative that brings the compost down to the big tumbler, put it inside, give it a spin. And it was so successful that Dan and I had to pause it because it got too full. So that's kind of our next step in our composting adventure, because it was amazing. We had all this compost, but then we realized we had to go back and research the balance because it was getting too smelly, and it was getting in unbalance with the nitrogen. So then we researched into coffee to kind of balance. So compost is ongoing. Our love assembly was all about, I had some students that were very much upset by war. And so they were like, Heather, we have to stop the war. And I was like, amazing. And how are we going to do this? So it ended up coming back to recognizing our friendships, our similarities, our differences. Why are people mean to each other? Why do they say unkind words? And from that, we created our love assembly. We held it on Valentine's Day. And it was all about community, just recognizing they made a peace torch. They were passing around the torch. I got with the music teacher. They had a song they were singing. We made Valentine's. It was just a day of promoting love and peace. And then finally, one of the things we looked at was March action goals. So we were trying to think, you know, how can we involve our 3-year-olds all the way up to our 11-year-olds? And so in this picture, it's just the early learners building houses for insects, and so they won't be cold. So again, it's just looking for opportunities to celebrate, to share, to come back together, and just recognize all the appreciation we have for our planet. And then just kind of, I know I'm time, but this year we reflected that we really need to go back and have kind of a process to this rather than just going and doing things. So we created this action proposal plan. And it's for the big things like assemblies, family forest days, things that require greater participation, greater organization. But we still have all the little initiatives happening. You know, litter pickup doesn't need this form. They can just go and pick up litter. We have a recycling team. I was thinking of you, Kyle, with the boxes, and they take care of that. And then last year also we got into like this whole plastic pollution, and they were like, we're going to create a sculpture to create awareness. So they collected all the newspaper from the recycling boxes and they created a globe. And it sat in our lobby to remind people about you know, maybe we're not near the ocean, but we're near the river, and our trash does flow down into the Seine, which then leads into the ocean. So just a little snapshot of the Cubs. It's a lot, and I've recruited Dan, but our whole goal is just to communicate and collaborate, and just continue to build this all up.
And Heather, for the Cubs, when
Yes.
do you meet with them?
We meet once a week before school. So they come in 8:30 and we meet into 9:15. And it's been working really well. We meet in our art room. So like my own students come in, but the Cubs meet in the art room, and then it's just a regular thing. We check in, we talk to each other, we just kind of figure out what our next projects are. Yeah.
And how many Cubs do you have at one time?
How many do we have now? 20?
14, yeah, no, yeah,
15.
between 15 to 15,
15, yeah.
between 15 and 18, maybe.
Yeah.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
And I eventually, right now it's just grades 2 to 5. But next year I'm actually moving down into grade 2 because I really want to bring it into the lower years. Grade 1, absolutely. I would love to have kindergarten representatives, and they just come to the meeting as a voice and to really build that relationship as like a central team. So that's the purpose of that.
Yeah.
So Dan's going to share the next bit.
Yeah, so I'm sure are there any questions that are relevant
yeah, sorry.
in the chat right now? Because we've been talking for a while, but there might be something which is
no, it was just me and my question about when.
Okay, so kind of building on the back of Heather's Action Cubs beginning over the past 2 years and development as to what we've seen now, and it's doing a wonderful job down in primary. And of course, every school has got its own bespoke, unique situation within school, and I'm sure that many schools have their own type of Action Cubs or their own version of Action Cubs. But we've now got an opportunity at ISP to do something which is maybe a little bit different. And of course, this might not be available to everybody, but it just so happens that I'm 2/3 of the way through my master's in sustainable food and natural resources, and I'm coming towards my dissertation, my final thesis. So I got in touch with Eco Schools, Eco École here in Paris, but also Eco Schools Global, which is based in Copenhagen. And sorry, I'll just pause for a moment. There we go. Okay. So yeah, I got in touch with Eco Schools because I knew that I wanted to do my final thesis as an action research project. One of my good friends had done a similar thing, and I was kind of like, oh my goodness, that's if you want to make some change and make your research meaningful, then school, me being a teacher, seemed like a sensible way to do it. And of course, not everybody's got this opportunity. But I think if you're given opportunities, it makes sense to really follow them through and really see what can be done. So I got in touch with Eco Schools Global, and they were very, very respondent to my initial suggestion of putting the Eco Schools program back into our school at ISP, but also running some action research with this the Eco Schools program. So the intention is to run a whole school eco committee. And I'm not sure if you know, I don't want to go into detail about the Eco Schools approach, but if you are interested, I'm more than happy to talk about it with you later, or I can give you, you've got, we'll give you the slides, and there are links in there as well. And it's a really great program to give you guidance and structure to a kind of an eco approach to the school, and especially when we're talking about obviously sustainability and regeneration. But we've got the opportunity to work with Eco Schools, run the Eco Schools program, whole school, as an after school activity, but also then put my research in that as well, and really try to find a way to really look deeply at the Eco Schools program. My intention is to run the program for 6 to 8 months, and then measure any outcomes against UNESCO's Greening Education Partnership objectives. So they've only just come out last year. So this looks like it's going to be the first type of research in this area, which is obviously very, very exciting. I hope I don't mess it up. But I mean, my point is, not everybody's going to have the opportunity to do this, but if you get an opportunity to try something and take a risk with something, we say to the kids all of the time, let's take a risk, take a risk with your learning, maybe try something new. You never know when it's going to be the best thing you've ever done. So we're going to try and go for this. I've spoken to the leadership at the school. They're very receptive. Eco Schools looks very, very much on board with it. And all I need to do now is make sure that I get my research proposal passed through my university. And that's something we can really start building whole school communication, whole school collaboration. And the intention of the Eco Schools program is for what it says here, continuity. It's no good doing these things if it's just going to be a 1 year, 2 year project, and then that's it. Because these things can happen in schools unless you've got something truly embedded. It's often the case that when people who are kind of leading that program or really involved in that program leave themselves, there's nobody to take it over. And slowly over time, or maybe even quickly, the intervention, the program kind of disappears. So we really want to try and build something that's got continuity and got stability and has got longevity. So that's the intention of what we're going to do here at ISP as kind of a whole school approach to sustainability, environmentalism as well.
Okay.
And it really comes up to...
I'm going to interrupt.
Yes.
Because you two can talk, right?
Sorry.
Sorry, Zoe.
No, it's great. So let's just examine one thing first. So how are you going to overlap the Cubs and the Eco Schools, do you imagine?
Yeah, great question. We'll run both at the same time.
Yeah.
So the Eco Schools program will be after school on 1 day in the week. So we'll be running that from 3:45 until 5:30. And then the Action Cubs will stay as a morning program as well. So we'll have the focused Action Cubs down in the primary school, and the Eco Committee will be running whole school hopefully from grade 12 down to probably grade 4.
Yeah.
And so this answers perhaps the question that Semha asked, which is, did you have something whole school, or is this going to be the first whole school sustainability piece?
That's a really good question. We learned well before us that ISP already was an eco school, and they went through the process and they did all the paperwork. But because it was based on particular teachers who since left, sorry about the bell. I'm sorry.
We don't hear anything. It's okay.
You don't hear it. Okay. All right. I'll keep going. Yeah, it just kind of dissolved. So we technically are still registered as an eco school, but we haven't kept up with the requirements. And so Dan and I are trying to bring it back, but we were trying to learn what could we do differently this time. And it was just elevating the student voice. So we'll try to get back there.
And then Sophie was asking about with the Cubs, what challenges did you encounter throughout those projects? Because you've had a lot of different projects.
So that's actually what we want to do in the breakout session.
Okay.
Because we really want to understand better. One of our big challenges is the communication, collaboration, and continuity. So we're curious to know what other people are doing, because we don't want it to end with Dan and I. And so that's what we want to ask everybody, because a big challenge here is time, our scheduling. Like, we're both homeroom teachers at the exact same time. We're trying to do all this. Collaboration with our middle and high school. We're on different campuses, and just like space. We are constantly trying to find space to do all these things. And then how does it continue beyond us? So that's what we want to ask everybody for input. So that kind of leads us into our breakout session.
Wow. Almost as if we planned it.
That's what we wanted to know too. And I mean, we want to be really honest. It's very challenging. And it's something that does take a lot of time, and we are only representing primary. And that's one of our challenges too. So I don't know, Zoe.
Yeah. Okay. So I've set up 2 breakout rooms, and you can take maybe 15 minutes. Does that sound
great? Yep.
15 minutes to talk about these questions. So what are some efficient systems of communication in your schools? And how do we embed sustainability practices that last beyond us and our classrooms? And Heather, if you could copy and paste those into the chat, and people with memory problems will be able to see them again. So 15 minutes. Please do try and put your cameras on when you're in the breakout rooms, if at all possible. It's nice to have that connection with people. Okay.
And then, sorry, Zoe, just before we go, if we can possibly make some notes or hold your thoughts so that we can then do a little share out at the end, that would be fantastic, because we could collect all those thoughts together and then we can share them with the whole group, so that maybe these things can support one another after this session's finished.
Thank you.
And just to clarify, only the main sessions are recorded. So what you say in your breakout room stays in your breakout room unless you want to share afterwards. Okay. Because we need some space to be able to talk and share it with our challenges. Okay, so here we go.
All right, lovely.
Wait, I'm just going to pause the.
We're back.
Welcome back, everyone. I think we're all back now. So I managed to pop into both rooms, and there was some really interesting conversations going on. Heather, would you like to perhaps summarize or call on someone to talk about the main learnings you gained?
I forgot your name, but it was really, is it Samhar? I'm so sorry, I'm saying it wrong.
No, you said it perfectly.
Samhar, okay. No, can you just share what you said? Because it was the last thought and I thought it was so important about the students.
Absolutely. I was just kind of building on what Phil had mentioned in terms of inviting students onto into the advisory, into the committee. We at our school have a sustainability committee, which we began last year. And so it's just really interesting that the students aren't involved in that. And that's something that I really want to bring back, especially into the action plan for next year, inviting students to the table and allowing them to have that voice, right? And I love what Phil mentioned about then taking their voice to the director of the school or to leadership team, because that's really kind of, that's the link that should be made, as opposed to the adult in the room kind of declaring this is what we've come up with, right? So I just think it's important to have that dialogue between students and the director or the senior leadership team to then have their voice amplified and brought onto the student body. So having that sharing work both ways. And then I also I also think that, we have a set of objectives that I really want to work on and be more intentional about what that looks like for our upcoming year. And inviting students to kind of share what their thoughts are is, I think, should be at the top of the priority list.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's exactly what it is, because it shouldn't just be based on a particular teacher at a particular time.
Absolutely.
It has
And
to count.
yeah, we also talked about the time. You
Yeah.
mentioned about how, it really is up to leadership to kind of understand the time commitments that are necessary for roles that, in terms of leadership roles and sustainability. And what does that mean? So I mentioned that the capacity of the person taking on these leadership roles has to match with the expectations of the role. And if it doesn't, then it's not really a sustainable role, which is kind of ironic considering
Yeah,
we're talking
exactly.
about sustainability. So, and I think that's just a gap that some leaders tend to just not recognize, or maybe just need that conversation has to be had. And I think it's an important one. Luckily, I come from a school it's super supportive, and leadership is really keen on listening to what we think should happen. So it's just a matter of having those really important conversations so that everybody can be heard and understood.
Yeah, thank you.
And Dan, do you want to draw on someone from your
Yeah, I
group?
mean, everybody made great points, but I think from a kind of understanding and talking to a lot of different schools, I think Sophie made a really salient point and really sees it from maybe an outside of a school perspective. So, Sophie, would you mind sharing your thoughts about the kind of mission and vision idea?
Yeah, for sure. So one of the first step we take when we work with Inspired Citizens with a new school is that we adapt on frameworks. And I wanted to try showing you one because we've just wait, let me share my screen. Can I have the screen share right?
Oh, I don't know.
Like most of the schools we work with, they all have, those teacher champions, like probably all of us in that room who have their own way of doing things. But then if we don't have one guiding statement or one guiding framework that we can adapt throughout all of our student projects, curriculum design work, experiential learning work, then it's hard also for people to keep track because it's just another thing that they need to understand. Um, so that's one example, right?
Oh,
Which is
that's awesome.
yeah, which is based on the empathy to impact framework, where we have the care section, the aware section, able and impact, and then within it, we have a cycle of reflection that goes throughout everything. And we've made some other models. So this one is a bit more specific to IB, where we're just mapping out what exists at the school, and then we just frame it accordingly. And this is really the basis, the strategic basis for all of the work that comes after it. And this is the amazing guy who created it. Yeah, so that's the step one, right? And then we can just implement it in different ways, whether it is student leadership projects. I was sharing with FIS the work we're doing now to integrate those skills into their Google Classrooms so that those skills exist independently on anyone facilitating them, or the curriculum work that now exists within their curriculum and is really integrated, whether one teacher leaves or stays, it just lives in the system. And so those are the kind of things we're looking at.
That's the key, like embedding it in the mindset of the school and making that just part of the expectations and the philosophy.
Yeah. We when we presented to our leadership just last Wednesday, we presented from, like we said, the systems thinking perspective, using compass points. But Heather and I have also been putting that into practice in our classrooms to really help the kids understand whatever topic you're talking about, whatever theme that you're, whatever unit you're going through. There's a way of thinking about things, and if you can think about things in a very, very broad sense, but with a focus, using a systems of thinking approach, and we're using the compass learning compass points approach. It really gives them a way to think about how everything is connected and everything has an impact. And even if you can't see it, something is happening beyond what you've just done. So it's not just about offering the opportunity to talk about this with leadership. It's taking it all the way through down to the youngest children. And you can definitely use these sorts of discussion points and use these sorts of frameworks across the whole school. And I think you're right. So if you can do this, it really gives you a good base to work from, because everybody then is thinking in the same way, and it does become in some sense embedded.
Yeah. And it has to come from a leadership also. That's what we were talking about, how it you know, if leadership is not on board, if they don't recognize the importance, if they don't carve out the time, if they don't make it a sustainable position, then we burn out. And that's pretty ironic if you think about what we're trying to do. So finding that balance, since most of us are still teachers on top of everything
One
else.
thing that's cropped up a lot is and no surprise, because it's one of the focus points of the session, is the importance of systems thinking in terms of sustainability in the school and how that helps communication and stuff. So I wonder, out of the people that are here, have you captured the framework for sustainability thinking at your school? Because that step alone can help to bring a structure to a systems thinking approach. Daniel, in your slides, Daniel and Heather, there were several schematics to show the way thinking works. And again, Sophie, in your slide share just there, that there's ways to capture the notion of how the thinking, how the dialogue evolves. So if you want, that was one of the most important bits of work that we did in Luxembourg to get things moving in a systematic way, so that it were avoided or lessened the likelihood of that kind of peak and trough where there's, oh, Phil Keachie's into sustainability now, so everything's moving along nicely. Oh, then he moves on and goes somewhere else and it drops off and stuff. So I can share with you. No, I can't. Sorry. But I can send out to the people that are here. I can send you a picture of the sustainability framework that we developed for ISL. You can go online. You can go on do a Google search. You can find 1,000,001, and they're all very similar. But I would recommend you go through a collaborative co-creation exercise in your own school and develop a sustainability framework that fits your context, because the context is everything in terms of sustainability and systems thinking around sustainability. So yeah, I just thought I'd throw that in, because that's crucial to help create a platform for those conversations, really important conversations to happen.
No, that's amazing.
So Heather and Daniel, we're about out of time. Would you like to summarize your sort of learnings now?
I'll let Dan summarize, but I just want to let everybody know in the chat, I just added a file that we put together after Change Now, and it's just a list of links and partnerships. And I know some of them are Paris-based, but if you wanted to connect in different ways, these are the conversations we had and we thought were the most relevant. So we just wanted to share that with everybody. And thank you from me, but go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, thanks, really. Thanks to everybody who's taken the time. Thanks to for all of your voices. Thanks for all of your thoughts. And I mean, this is the thing now. Heather and I are very much directed towards, in a sensible and appropriate way, because we don't want to spread yourself too thin. None of us want to spread ourselves too thin. But if we can make collaborations and we can share thinking and we can continue to communicate with people, outside of this space, then kind of my very in terms of kind of limited experience of doing this sort of thing, just do it. Just be bold enough to speak to people and try new things, and also I think in any way you can, in sensible way, speak to your leadership and really see where their stance is. Put your point across in a clear and coherent way that is maybe what we're taking is for the benefit of the school perspective, for sure, and that's probably the case in most educational establishments. But really, to speak to leadership so you know where their perspective lies, because there might be some things happening behind the scenes that you don't know of, and some things aren't simply possible. But until you open that conversation, you might not know. So yeah, maybe take that step and see what happens. That would be my advice from what we've experienced so far.
Thank you.
And my takeaway was something that Heather said before we came online, which is to be positively persistent.
There you go. Come back. Yes.
Yeah, just keep trying.
You've got to keep trying. So thanks, everyone, and have a great evening.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, everybody.